posters to share about, so I'm going to hand directly over to Megan to introduce her topic.
Can everyone see my screen? Yes, all good?
Yeah.
Great, great. So I've got 2 posters to present today. I'm at 8 months out from finishing my PhD, so I have collected all my data and I am in the process of analysing / writing up. The very first project that I did within my PhD right at the beginning was I did a systematic review of systematic reviews, which is called an umbrella review. There was about 17 systematic reviews on my topic, and my topic is diet and depression. And all the systematic reviews that I read had conflicting messages. Some said that diet did play a role in depression. Some said that diet didn't play a role in depression. I was like, well, we use systematic reviews as the top level of the hierarchy of evidence, and if we're doing that and we've got 17 systematic reviews saying different things, then something needs to be done about that. So I decided to review them all and produced my umbrella review, which is being reviewed for publication at the present moment. What I found in my umbrella review was that Mediterranean dietary patterns are the best dietary pattern in the world for mental health, including depression. Mediterranean dietary patterns mainly consist of fresh fruit, nuts, seeds, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, a little bit of meat, so a very small portion of meat, large amounts of oily fish, olive oil, and a small consumption of red wine and dark chocolate, which is great. Yay. We also found that the Western diet, which is a bit sad because that's where we are, we're in a Western society. The Western diet is the worst diet for mental health. Western diets are typically high in processed foods, processed meats, sugary beverages, sugary sweetened beverages, sugary foods and sugar sweetened beverages, lots of vegetable oils, things like that, and lots of takeaway. And Uber Eats kind of lifestyle is taking over, whereas in the Mediterranean, people tend to eat all in this big social context. So that's what I found in my umbrella review. And the umbrella review informed the next stage of my research project, which was my focus group study, which is this one here. Has that changed, Katie? Can everyone see the focus group study?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes,
so my focus group study, the reason that we decided to do a mixed methods research project and have a look at a focus group study as the first arm of my project was because when I did my umbrella review, there was like over 200 papers on dietary patterns and depression, but all of them were quantitative. 97% of them were observational, so surveys and longitudinal studies, and there were only 3 randomized controlled trials that have ever been done on diet and depression. 0 qualitative studies, 0 mixed methods research in diet and depression. So we thought we would take the opportunity to do that for ourselves. So in July and August of last year, we conducted 9 focus groups across SCU and Griffith Uni with 55 participants. So we had about 35 students, about 14 staff members, and about 6 accredited practicing dietitians. So we've got a couple of different populations to talk to, and we asked them about what their experiences were with food and mood. And what we found was very interesting. So we found that although there was a lot of this nutritional component to diet and mood, there was also these other things that were really, really important, like the social context within which people ate. And I think that was the main one. But there was also this theme that came through about growing and preparing your own food and cooking as part of mental health and relaxation. When you're cooking your own food from scratch and putting love into it, and the time that you get with your family was also really good for mental health. We also found that foods that were convenient or eaten really quickly or eaten in front of the television, or as I said, the Uber Eats lifestyle that we have, where you're not paying attention to what you're eating and you do it in a very independent way or in front of your computer while you're working, that led to lower mood in participants. And intuitive eating, which really goes down that track that Yagya was talking about with mindfulness earlier. Intuitive eating is all about mindful eating and eating what your body is telling you it wants and listening to your body's cues when it's hungry, when it's not hungry, and really listening to what your body is saying. And we found that eating intuitively and eating mindfully really resonated with higher levels of mood. All of the things that we found out in our focus group then informed the next stage of my project, which was a longitudinal study. And we accessed pre-existing data from the Australian longitudinal study on women's health, and we used what we found in the focus group to pull variables out to measure across the last 25 years. Every 3 years, women in Australia were asked about their diet and depression and other variables such as physical activity, mindfulness, social function, all those things, and we are currently analysing that. So that is my 3 kind of armed mixed methods research. Does anyone have a question? I think there's some chat that I haven't been able to access.
Hey, Megan, can I talk?
Yes.
Can you say something about olive oil? How how does olive oil work with what you're talking about?
Yes, absolutely. Whoa, I've got some feedback. I'm okay now.
I might just ask everyone who's not talking to mute themselves.
So olive oil is really interesting, Yagya. Way back when I started my PhD, I really looked at food components rather than dietary patterns as a whole. And one of the things that came up was this leaning away from vegetable oils and towards polyunsaturated fatty acids. Now, olive oil is one of those, as is oily fish also has polyunsaturated fatty acids in it. And they are very, very helpful for mood and mental health outcomes. So just the fact that people in the Mediterranean do tend to eat a lot of olive oil is very interesting in the fact that they have those really great outcomes for mental health and dementia as well.
I think Shay was trying to speak at the same time before.
It's okay. Thank you, Megan. Wonderful work. Yes, so incredibly important, and so important for people doing a PhD to eat properly. So I find myself sometimes that I'm busy eating a piece of toast, so I'm feeling guilty listening to you. But I'm very fascinated by what you said about dark chocolate, because that's a stable comfort food for me, really good quality organic dark chocolate. So I wondered if you could say something more about that.
Yep. So if you want to learn a little bit more about this, there is an amazing podcast on Spotify and Apple iPlay. I don't know what it's called, Apple Play, called Thinking Nutrition by Tim Crow. He goes through, there's probably about 20 of them now, but one of them's on chocolate and the health benefits of eating chocolate, and he talks about dark chocolate in particular. So dark chocolate is, out of all the chocolates, it's the lowest in sugar content. It also is massively high in antioxidants, and antioxidants you also find in fruit and veg, tea, red wine, and yeah, I think that's it. But antioxidants are one of the major players in physical and mental health. And that's one of the things that I'm finding in my research, is that all the things that you're told about improving and optimal physical health are the same things that are important for mental health. So it's not different. You don't have to go and say, oh, what are the good foods for mental health, because they're one and the same. It's really, really simple. It's basically eat things fresh, natural and raw, as close to their original state as possible, and stay away from things that have been processed, or I mean ultra processed, because everything's processed. Once you pick it, that's a process. But these ultra processed foods that have like high amounts of ingredients that you don't understand. If it comes in a box, a jar or a packet, it's probably not great for you. Shop on the exterior of the shopping centre, stay out of the middle aisles. That's it. And eat lots of dark chocolate and drink lots of wine. No,
Thank you.
That's great advice, Megan. We've got one question in the chat here from Madison. She's asked, do you think weight loss / gain is as important as overall dietary pattern?
Okay, Madison, you have hit a very interesting point for me, because my honours year project, which was 4 years ago now, was on the intuitive eating, which is what I was talking about before, and dieting and weight-focused thinking in women. And I was looking particularly at population of postpartum women, so women who had children between 0 and 4 years. And what we found in that study was that body image satisfaction, self-esteem, psychological wellness, and self-efficacy were all highly linked to eating intuitively and getting rid of weight-focused thinking. So I'm a big non-diet advocate. I don't believe in diets. I hate the word diet. So diet and dietary patterns are completely different. I'm all about not depriving yourself of the foods that you love. I'm all about making healthy swaps into foods that you love, your comfort foods that you love, just putting the healthier ingredients in and having an education on what those things are. And I'm definitely all about healthy at every size. So no matter what you weigh, you can be healthy. There are skinny people out there who are unhealthy. There are people who are in plus size bodies who are healthy. Do you know what I mean? So that whole weight focused thinking is a real big thing for me.
Can I ask a question, Megan?
Yep.
So I really like what you were saying about, I think we often focus on the food products themselves and the components of food and stuff, but you also said that the social component of eating is really important. And you said taking the time to cook for oneself, for instance, with fresh ingredients and feeling that as a meditative space. And I think it's not just the preparing of food, but I know entire families who have never sat down together in their entire family life to share a meal.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts about the importance of sharing a meal together as a way of, checking in with each other,
Yep.
Sharing ideas, creating a family identity, a group identity, and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. And that was the main theme that came out of that focus group study, was people really attached mental wellness with that sitting down with people and eating well and eating together and cooking together and the laughing and the reaching over each other and talking. And rather than like in Western society, we kind of eat on one plate in our space. In the Mediterranean, they're like put out big platters of food and people are like reaching over and talking and laughing and music and all that sort of stuff. And that doesn't quite happen as much in our Western society. It was really interesting. One of the girls in the focus group said to me, I can pack up my lunch with tomatoes and salad and kale and whole grains and legumes and bring it to work, and I can sit in my cubicle at work and eat it by myself and not even think about the food that's going into my body. And I don't think I'm going to be as healthy as if I go down the street with my friends and eat something that's a little bit more unhealthy. And she said, I think I'm going to get more nutrition from that food while I'm eating in a social context and sitting by myself. And there's actual research out there now that shows that when a human body is in a relaxed state or in a state of happiness that you actually do absorb the nutrition from your food better.
Gosh, that's fascinating, Megan. In the chat, I've got a request to ask another question. We are over time. So what I'm going to request is I'm just going to really briefly give instructions about where we're about to go in the conference. And then if you are amenable, we'll ask the other question.
Yep, no problem.
Straight after that. So thank you to all of the presenters in this session. It was really fun to talk to each other. It's really lovely seeing everyone's faces, and a big congratulations to everyone. These conversations can be continued in their appropriate spaces. It'll be easiest for the speakers to find your questions if you put them underneath their sections. This afternoon, we are breaking into 3 streams, same as this morning. I really encourage you to stick around and support everyone. I'm hoping to, by early evening, have all of the recordings up for you to watch any of the ones that you've missed. So a great big thank you for everyone turning up, and we hope to see you in the next session, which will be starting at 2:30 Queensland time and 3:30 New South Wales times. I am going to skip back to that question. It's from...
Just quickly, sorry, Katie, just quickly before you do that, I just wanted to put a shout out to everyone. I'm just putting in the chat box right now a link to a survey. It only takes 10 minutes. It's for my honours student who's doing his project on diet and depression, and he's finding it because of COVID. He's finding really, really hard to get participants. So it's meat eaters, vegetarians and vegans. It takes 10 minutes. Please do the survey and share it on your socials if you can to get other people, because we really want him to be able to submit his honours thesis, the poor little thing. So yeah, if you can help us out, that would be amazing.
And I'll put it in the chat in the actual Hoover platform as well, because I think that went into the Zoom chat. So
okay,
we will meet everyone at 2:30, which gives us a bit of time to move around and have something nutritious to eat. But I'm just going to zip back up to this question from Richard. I'd be interested to hear Megan's thoughts on how we engage with food, perhaps as distinct from the types of food we consume, specifically food in box services and mental health. So you were already touching on that, how we engage in food, but food in box services. And Richard, feel free to pipe up as well if you...
Food in box services are really interesting. I'm assuming that you were talking about things like HelloFresh, where you get...
Yeah, hi. Yeah, exactly, that's right. So, and I guess the specific, and you have touched upon this in your previous answer, but the particular context in which I tend to consider these food in box services, which I'm very against at a personal level, is people who tend to live in so I'm in inner Melbourne, there's a lot of high-rise apartments around me. So actually you can have these situations emerging whereby people are waking up in the morning. Pre-COVID, they would get on a tram and go to an office block. They would come home, and waiting at their door would be a box of food, literally with instructions telling them, this is what you unwrap first, this is what you can do with this piece of food. And you don't actually have to have any engagement at all with the process of actually acquiring your food. And it seems to be a separate step of disengagement from your environment.
Yeah. I hear you completely. And there are 2 sides of the story. I'm really passionate about our disconnection from our food source. So much so that one of the things that really bugs me is that we can go to the supermarket and buy these trays of meat with the plastic wrap on it and bring it home and cook the steak and eat it. But we're so disconnected from the process of how that steak got into that plastic wrap. I don't know how many of us would still be meat eaters if we were forced to slaughter our own animals and rear them first, raise them, slaughter them and eat them. I don't know how many of us would still remain meat eaters if that was the case. There's also this argument about why is it okay to eat cows, but it's not okay to eat horses and dogs. They're still animals. And it's this weird thing about meat that And I do still eat meat. I tried a plant-based diet and my ferritin levels decreased so dramatically that I was forced to go back to eating meat. So I am a meat eater. I do promote plant-based diets though. They are the best for mental health. The other thing, so the thing with the boxed meals, there's two sides to it. So boxed meals are really good for people who would normally eat a Western dietary pattern. And we know that the Western dietary pattern is high in those processed foods, takeaway foods, convenience foods, because people don't know how to cook, or people haven't been raised to know how to cook from scratch. And that is something that's just predominant in our culture. In the Mediterranean, children are reared to learn how to cook. So these boxes actually can be quite good for people because they are full of fresh ingredients from the natural source. However, they're not so great for understanding about where food comes from, exactly what you were saying.
Great, thank you.
No.
While you're waiting there, and if nobody else has a question, I should just, by way of digressing, I have set for myself that very task of raising my own meat. So stay tuned. I have raised some lambs, and it's about the time when D-Day is sort of on the line, and I'm a meat eater, and I think it's really full of hypocrisy for me to say I won't eat my own lamb, but I'm happy to walk to the supermarket and buy something off the shelf.
I know, and it's kind of this cognitive dissonance that we have in this society that we don't even think about. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment on that thread there. I fully agree with you, Megan, and quite a while ago decided that I was only going to eat the meat that I was prepared to slaughter myself. And so I was eating chicken and goat, which I had both of those, but I completely stopped eating beef, which I didn't eat much of because I was also working with cows, and they're too sentient. There was no way that I could ever have slaughtered a cow. But interestingly, I was actually raising my own fish as well in the dam, and actually found it harder to kill a fish.
Yeah.
Birds was really easy, but the fish were so innocent. It was really fascinating. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's just
we go fishing in our family, and I'm not a really good fisherman, which is probably a good thing, but I did catch a fish 2 weeks ago when we were camping, and he came out of the water on the hook, and then normally you can get the hook out, but it was stuck right down his throat, and I was like panicking, and I felt so bad for him, and I was trying really hard to get the hook out without injuring him. And when it finally came out, I put him back in the water, and I said, that's it, my fishing days are over. I can't handle it. I can't do that.
Yeah. Do you know fish took like 4 hours to die after you took it out of the water. So it's really painful for her, like 4 hours.
Of not being able to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard.
Wow. Well, that's a sad note to end on there, but what a fantastic discussion. Thank you so much.